the field before dawn, the call to step into the fire. Imagine, just for a moment, you are standing at the edge of a vast field before dawn. There are no voices, only a thin mist and the chill brushing against your skin. The night behind you is not gentle. It carries storms, confusion, and unspoken sighs. Yet here, at the fragile border between darkness and light, something quietly stirs. It is not joy nor peace. It is readiness. Not because the pain has passed, but because you no longer run from it. You feel the fire in your heart still glowing, not fierce, just bright enough to reveal the path ahead. Emmet Fox once said, "The outer world is not the ultimate power, but merely the shadow of the inner life. It is the mind, not circumstances, that creates." And in this moment, as darkness gives way to the first light, you realize that the fire you have feared all along did not come to destroy you, but to awaken you. Picture a bridge between the sky and the earth, not made of stone, but of light. With each step you take, it glows a little brighter. It does not invite you to flee from the fire, but to walk through it, to see yourself on the other side, where you no longer pretend to be at peace, but begin to truly live. In a world where people are taught to avoid pain, to seek comfort, to escape friction, there lies a timeless truth. No transformation happens in stillness. Every awakening passes through fire, and fire is not the enemy, it is the voice of the soul, the signal that something deep within you is ready to live, to be seen, to shine. You stand there taking a deep breath, feeling the silence fill each heartbeat. There is no need to search for answers, no need to run back. Just breathe and take one small step toward the rising light. It is not escape, but acceptance, the willingness to walk with the fire and let it guide you back to yourself. Adversity is not the enemy. It is the soul's invitation. There is an ancient illusion deeply rooted in the human mind, the belief that what hurts us must be avoided, that if life is not smooth, we must have taken a wrong turn. But that is only the voice of fear, always trying to keep you safe within familiar walls where nothing new can be born. In truth, adversity has never been the enemy. It is the stern friend who appears when your soul desires to grow beyond what you have settled for. It does not ask for permission. It arrives like a strong wind, like a blade sharpening your will, like fire testing the gold within you. If you look closely, you will see that every turning point in your life began with a crack, a loss, a crisis, a long night that seemed endless. In that moment, you might have thought you were falling apart, but it was from that breaking point that something deeper and truer began to breathe. It was not destruction, it was rebirth. Adversity does not strike at you, it strikes at the illusions you cling to. It does not target your soul, but the shell you have built around it. When your old job suddenly feels too small, your relationships grow distant, or your old beliefs no longer fit, that is not failure. It is an invitation, a whisper from life saying, you have outgrown this old skin. People often ask, why is this happening to me? The real question is, what is this trying to teach me? Because adversity does not come to take away, it comes to reveal. It is the torch that shines into the dark corners of your being, the gentle knocking of truth seeking its way in. You do not need to fear the dark, for from it light begins. Emmet Fox once wrote, "No outer circumstance can hold power over one who knows who they are." When you understand this, you no longer see events as punishment. You see them as lessons, as tools for shaping the mind. When you stop asking why and begin asking for what purpose, you move from victim to co-creator. And that is the first step in turning fire into an ally. Look back on your life. How many times did you think everything was lost, only to find a new strength and clarity that you had never known before? How many times, only when every plan fell apart, did you discover that the only thing you could truly rely on was yourself? Each time, adversity did not destroy you. It only stripped away the weakness so that your resilience could be born. Adversity is the wind, and you are the flame. Wind cannot extinguish real fire. It only makes it burn brighter. But for the fire to grow strong, you must be willing to burn. willing to face the heat of truth, willing to let illusions dissolve. When you stop seeing suffering as an enemy and begin to see it as a teacher, you rise to a higher level of consciousness, where fire no longer burns but illuminates. Perhaps right now you are in the middle of a storm, losing a job, a breakup, a betrayal, or simply feeling lost in the rhythm of daily life. Pause and ask yourself, what if this is not punishment, but preparation? For your soul never sends anything meaningless. It only sends what is needed for your growth. In the harshest hours, when you feel there is nothing left to hold on to, take a deep breath and whisper, I am ready to learn this lesson, no matter the form it takes. When you say that, something shifts within you, from resistance to acceptance, from fear to curiosity, from victim to creator, and that shift opens a path unseen by the eyes but felt by the soul. Life is not against you. It is collaborating with you, fiercely, honestly, and with great love. The fire does not demand perfection. It only asks for your presence. All it needs is for you to stay in its heat long enough for what is false to melt away. And when that happens, you will understand that every challenge was life's way of guiding you home to the fire that has always waited in your heart. So now, in the adversity you face today, can you dare to believe that this is not the end, but the beginning, the nature of fire, not destruction, but revelation? There is a truth most people only realize after walking through suffering. Fire does not come to burn you down. It comes to illuminate. We fear fire because it burns away what we cling to, because it does not compromise with falsehood. But if you look deeper, you will see that fire is light in its most powerful form. Gentle light can touch the surface, but only fire can pierce through layers of illusion and reveal what is real inside. Emmet Fox once said, when you hold resentment, you tie yourself to that person with an invisible steel cord. Forgiveness is cutting the cord and setting yourself free. Fire works the same way. It severs the cords of fear, of rigid habits, of structures we think keep us safe, but in truth only imprison us. When fire passes through, it does not take your soul. It only takes what is no longer you. Every pain, when seen through a clear heart, becomes a ritual of purification. Like gold in the furnace, only under intense heat can impurities melt away, leaving the purest essence behind. Fire makes metal lose its form, but that is what allows it to be reshaped into something stronger, finer, and more beautiful. The soul is no different. When the fire of trial moves through, the small self melts, and the true being begins to take form again. Think back to the last time you went through something that made you feel broken. Maybe it was a heartbreak, a dream collapsing, or a betrayal. In that moment, it felt like you were burning. But as time passed, you saw that the very fire that seemed to destroy you was the same one that woke you up, that made you stop, that made you ask, who am I really? What am I living for? In that moment, you were not burned. You were illuminated. Fire is not the enemy of darkness, it is its end. Each time you face fear and refuse to run, an old layer of you dissolves and the real one emerges. The deeper you look into your pain, the greater the light becomes. Adversity does not kill you. It only strips away your disguise. In the physical world, we are taught to put out fires as fast as we can. But in the spiritual world, sometimes you need to sit still and watch the fire burn to learn what it wants to say. Imagine a forest within you. Every old thought, every fearful belief is a dry tree. When fire comes, it burns them down. Smoke rises, and you think you have lost everything. But beneath the ashes, new seeds are waiting to sprout, and the forest after the fire is always greener, stronger, more alive. Fire is truth in visible form. It does not compromise. It does not know how to lie. When you step into fire, you cannot pretend anymore. You cannot keep playing the role of the one who is always strong, always right, always in control. Fire keeps only what is true, true love, true desire, true faith. Everything else it returns to dust. And when you see those false layers fall away, know that you are being saved, not punished. Some people, when faced with crisis, choose to run. They flee from the flame and hide in a false peace. But that kind of peace is stagnation, a still pond with no life. Those who dare to walk through the fire, trembling but willing, will emerge on the other side with brighter eyes. They do not need to say much, because their very presence carries light. When you understand what fire truly is, you stop cursing your past. You feel gratitude for the moments that made you weep, for they were the invisible hands guiding you back to your center. You begin to see that nothing is ever truly lost. Everything is simply being transformed. And the only thing you must do is stop running and look within. One day, as you sit among the ashes, you will realize something quiet yet profound. You are not what has burned. You are the light that remains after the fire. That light never goes out. It has only been waiting for you to see it. So today, whatever storm you are walking through, stand still for a moment, take a deep breath, and look directly at it. Do not ask why. Do not rush to fix it. Simply say to yourself, I am ready to change. For in that very moment, the fire within you begins to glow, brighter, warmer, and truer than ever before. Burning bright in chaos, awakening is not gentle. People often speak of awakening as something serene, sacred, and filled with light. But the truth is otherwise. Awakening is not a soft morning meditation or a tender prayer. It comes like a storm that sweeps away everything false. It shakes you, breaks what you once believed in, and pulls you out of the patterns you used to call life. Awakening, in its truest form, is the cremation of the old self. When the soul wants to expand, life rearranges itself to make it happen, not through comfort, but through disruption. The job disappears, the relationship ends, the belief system collapses. Each shock is a flame, and the flame never asks if you are ready. It comes exactly when it must, to clear away what has become too small for the version of you that is being born. You might ask, why must it hurt so much? Because humans only truly change when they have no other choice. When everything outside becomes too tight, the soul turns inward. That is when the inner light begins to flicker through the dust. But to see it, you must accept the burning of collapse. Look at a volcano when it erupts. The lava seems destructive, yet months later the land becomes more fertile than ever. The same happens in the spiritual life. The chaos you fear today may be the rich soil your soul will grow in tomorrow, as long as you do not run away. Emmet Fox once wrote, when you change your thinking, circumstances must change too. But he never said it would be easy. Changing the way you think means dismantling an entire system, the beliefs you have carried for years, the roles you have played, the stories you told to protect yourself. When those fall apart, it feels like you are losing yourself. In truth, you are losing only the false version. In chaos, you begin to learn the first lesson of awakening. Nothing outside of you can give you safety. Everything else is temporary. Work, reputation, people, opinions, money. When those structures shake, you tremble because you thought they were the foundation. But fire comes to show you that the real foundation is within, in the deepest calm where you realize, I am still here even when everything else disappears. The truth is, no awakening happens peacefully. Every great soul has been burned. Moses met the divine through a burning bush. Buddha awakened under the Bodhi tree after despair, and countless others found themselves only when there was nothing left to lose. You are no different. Your fire may have another name, a heartbreak, an illness, a season of loneliness, but its purpose is the same. In chaos, you will long for shortcuts. You will want someone to rescue you, or at least promise that it will all be okay. But truth offers no such promise. It only says, stay. Stay with the pain. Stay with the emptiness. Stay with the scream inside you. Because only when you stay can you hear the voice of the soul, the one you missed in comfort. Perhaps now you are in the middle of your own fire. Nothing makes sense, plans are gone, and you no longer know who you are. Do not rush to put it out. Look closely. What is burning? A belief? A habit? A self-image that needs others' approval? Let it burn completely. Only when the ashes cool will you see what remains, the pure essence untouched by flame. This time is what many call the dark night of the soul. It is not punishment, but a sacred rite of rebirth. When the old has died and the new has not yet formed, you stand in that terrifying void. But trust, that emptiness is the womb of new life. Without it, there is no real you. Awakening is not gentle because it was never meant to be comfortable. It was meant to be true. And truth is often raw, fiery, full of contradictions. But once you walk through it, you will never wish to return to the false peace you once knew. You will understand that fire does not destroy you. It restores you to yourself. Let chaos do its work. Let fire teach you the difference between what is true and what is false, between what you choose out of fear and what you choose out of love. When you can sit still in the storm and keep your breath steady, you have found your center. And from that center, you will see that every collapse is just a dance of life making space for the new to enter. Do not fear chaos. It is simply the sound of rebirth. And when the fire burns bright, remember this: you are not being destroyed, you are being forged. The veil and the mirror, the outer world, is the effect. There was a time when we believed the outer world decided everything: the job, the money, what others thought, the circumstances of the time. We tried to control, to shape, to arrange everything to avoid pain. Yet there always came a day when, despite all effort, everything still collapsed. And in that moment, your soul began to whisper, "Look again, maybe you have been facing the wrong way." Emmet Fox once said, "The material world is not the cause, but the effect. Every circumstance is born from the mind." At first, that may sound like distant philosophy. But if you pause, breathe deeply, and truly look around, you will see he was right. Every reaction, every habit, every belief you hold has shaped the landscape of your life. Life does not punish, it only reflects what you believe is true. The world, after all, is only a mirror. It does not lie, no matter how you paint your face. When you smile, it smiles back. When you frown, it frowns. When you are full of fear, the world builds scenes that mirror that fear. This is not cruelty, but the precise mechanism of the spiritual law, the law of reflection. You can deny it, you can blame others, but the mirror does not change its image for that. It waits for you to change within. When your inner state shifts, the reflection shifts instantly. The key word here is not control, but awareness. Awareness that everything outside is just the physical expression of the thoughts, emotions, and energy inside you. When you understand this, you stop trying to manipulate circumstances. You begin to observe yourself. When someone hurts you, instead of reacting, you ask, "Why is this part of me being touched?" When a door closes, you ask, "What belief inside me fears this loss so deeply?" Each question is like wiping dust from the mirror, allowing the image to become clearer. The outer world does not create the fire. It only reveals where the fire is burning within. When you see chaos outside, it means your inner world is divided. When you see violence, it invites you to ask how you have been fighting against yourself. When you see love, it mirrors the love you have allowed to exist within you. Every event, whether good or bad, is only a signal. Once you understand this language of signals, life turns from a battlefield into a conversation. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That question, small as it seems, is the turning point between the victim and the awakened one. Imagine standing before a giant mirror. Inside it lies the world, the people you meet, the work you do, every corner of your life. What you may not realize is that the mirror reflects precisely what you carry. If you carry light, it multiplies the light. If you carry darkness, it magnifies the darkness. And if you dare to stand still before it, without judgment, simply watching, you will see something miraculous. The mirror is not trying to hurt you. It is helping you see yourself. Some may say, "Then all I need is positive thinking." No, this is not self-hypnosis. The law of reflection does not respond to words, it responds to energy. You can say, "I am fine" 100 times, but if deep inside you are filled with fear, life will keep reflecting that fear until you acknowledge and release it. Fire never believes words, it only trusts the frequency of truth. And this is why adversity appears. When the images in the mirror become distorted, life creates collisions so you cannot ignore them. An argument, a loss, a long loneliness. All are alarm bells inviting you to adjust what is within. Not to blame yourself, but to see how you are creating your reality. When you change your perception, the structure of the world changes. When you stop seeing yourself as a victim, those who once hurt you shift their roles. When you forgive, the old situation dissolves. When you feel gratitude, the veil of fear lifts and light rushes in. There is no greater miracle than realizing you are the writer of your own script. From the moment you understand that the outer world is only the effect of the inner world, you become the one holding the pen. And then the fire of challenge is no longer a threat, but a lantern illuminating every line you write. So next time everything outside feels chaotic, do not rush to put out the flames. Look into the mirror and ask, what part of me is this reflection showing? The answer will not come from logic, but from intuition. And when you hear it, you will see the world has never been against you. It has only been faithfully reflecting what you need to see in order to return to yourself. The whisper after collapse, the power of stillness. After the storm passes, there is often a strange moment. No more noise, no more people, nothing left to do. Only you remain, bare and exposed in the vast space. Everything that once defined you, your job, your roles, your relationships, falls away like old clothing. In that instant, many believe they are empty, but in truth, that is when the soul begins to whisper. It speaks so softly that if you do not stop, you will not hear it. Collapse, whether outer or inner, is never the end. It is the pause between two chapters. The old one has burned, the new one is not yet written. Between them lies the void, and in that void is your most original voice. Yet most of us fear silence, because in it there is nothing left to hold on to. No praise or criticism, no noise to distract, only you and your breath. And that is why so many miss the most sacred moment of all, the stillness after the fall. Emmet Fox once said, "Silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of God." When the outside collapses, the inside finally has space for that voice to rise. You cannot hear it while you are resisting, analyzing, or blaming. That voice never shouts, it does not argue. It only whispers so softly that you must release all struggle to feel it. Perhaps you have gone through a time like this, when you no longer had the energy to fight, when every effort to fix things failed. You sat in the dark, and instead of fighting, you began to breathe. Just breathe. That was the moment you stopped resisting life and began to move with it. And in that moment, stillness opened like a doorway into truth. Stillness is not escape. It is an act of the soul. In stillness, all false voices, the fearful, the demanding, the self-blaming, begin to dissolve, leaving behind pure space. That space is not empty. It is filled with life, but a life that does not need to prove itself. You feel it as a warm current rising from your heart to your head, as a gentle light spreading through your body. In stillness, you finally see what you have been running from. That pain is not the enemy. It is the door. Fear is not darkness. It is a signal. When you stop pushing them away, they become gentle. Like a wild creature no longer cornered, they lower their heads, and in their eyes, you see your own reflection, the part of you you never allowed to exist. That is why every great spiritual tradition includes a period of silence, 40 days in the desert, weeks under the Bodhi tree, years of solitude in meditation. Stillness is where fire becomes light without burning. It no longer consumes, it illuminates. And when it illuminates, you see the world through new eyes. You no longer ask, when will life be peaceful? But can I remain peaceful within life as it is? Stillness teaches you that you do not need to change the world to find peace. You only need to be still, and the world will align. For when you become calm, everything around you begins to harmonize with that rhythm, like a lake that stops rippling and reflects the sky clearly. No one rearranges the water, it becomes clear because you stop stirring it. Stillness also teaches you how to listen, not with your ears, but with your whole being. You begin to hear subtle signals, the rustle of leaves, the beat of your heart, your own breath, and above all, the voice of the soul. That voice is very different from the voice of the ego. It does not command or threaten. It only invites. It says, be here. And the moment you agree, transformation begins. When you live in stillness long enough, you realize that every answer you have ever sought outside has always been within you. They were only hidden beneath the noise. When the noise fades, a primal wisdom emerges, not in words, but in knowing. You suddenly understand why things happened, why someone left, why the path had to twist, and you no longer need explanations. Stillness does not promise to erase pain. It shows you how to walk with pain without being swallowed by it. It teaches you that even in ruin, there is space for breath, for love, for gratitude. When you feel that, you begin to live differently. No more rushing, no more proving, no more fear of being wrong. You become one who listens to life, not one who tries to control it. And then, when stillness becomes your way of being, you realize it is not the pause between storms. It is the sky that holds them all. When you know this, you no longer wish for peace. You are peace, the universal law. Fire is the precise mechanism of refinement in every spiritual teaching, whether in the Bible, the Upanishads, or the words of modern masters. There is one shared truth. Nothing happens by accident. Every event, great or small, is the response of a subtle and perfect principle, the asterisk, asterisk, universal law, asterisk, asterisk. Emmet Fox called it the divine law, the sacred law of consciousness. It is not a law of punishment, but of correction, not a rigid destiny, but the balance of cosmic intelligence. And fire is the most precise instrument this law uses to refine the soul. Many misunderstand this law. They think it rewards the good and punishes the bad. But the law does not judge like humans do. It only reflects the frequency you emit. If you carry fear, doubt, or unworthiness, life will create circumstances that mirror them, helping you see and realign. If you hold light, trust, and love, the law arranges resonant experiences to expand that energy. Not because it loves or hates you, but because that is how truth operates. Fire appears whenever you drift away from the frequency of your soul. It does not come to punish, but to recalibrate. Like the skilled hand of a goldsmith, it melts the metal so that impurities rise to the surface. When you resist the fire, you remain with the impurities. When you surrender to it, you are refined. So precise is its nature that only the part of you out of alignment is burned, while the pure essence remains intact, shining even brighter. Think of the times in your life when you were pushed into unwanted situations. A project collapsed, someone left, a plan unraveled. You thought it was bad luck. But looking back, you see a perfect logic beneath it all. Each disruption was a message from the law saying, something in you is no longer aligned. No one was punished. Everyone was simply being adjusted. The universal law works beyond human reasoning. It does not respond to your words or petitions, but to your true inner state. You may say, I trust, yet if doubt still lingers in your heart, the law will bring experiences that expose it, not to hurt you, but to help you see yourself clearly. The law never errs, for it is truth in motion. When you understand this, you stop blaming people or circumstances. You begin to ask, what is this fire trying to show me? And that question opens a new path. When you ask from awareness, the answer does not come from the mind, but from inner stillness, sometimes as intuition, sometimes as sudden clarity. You realize you were never being harmed, only rearranged to match the frequency of truth. Imagine you are a musical instrument, and the law is the universal symphony. Whenever you fall out of tune, life produces dissonance. That is adversity. Not to shame you, but to help you hear where you need to adjust your strings. And when you tune yourself back to harmony, everything begins to flow again, as if the world breathes with you. Fire, in this sense, is not the destroyer, but the conductor of the law. It burns only what is off key. It consumes narrow thoughts, illusions of separation, and self-sabotaging patterns. And when the fire finishes its work, a new melody rises within you, lighter, clearer, more authentic. The key is not to rush to extinguish the fire. When you resist, the law intensifies the heat until you listen. A small conflict ignored becomes a greater crisis. A gentle warning dismissed becomes loss. Life does this not to punish, but out of deep compassion, to ensure you awaken. If the whisper is not enough, it will use a roar, not from cruelty, but from love. Think of the times you refused to pause until life forced you to stop. Then you realized the signs had always been there, only you did not listen. You learned that fire never appears suddenly. It is the final signal after many missed ones. When you see this, you begin to thank the fire, for it is the last invitation to return to the order of your soul. The universal law teaches that every energy you send out returns to you, not sooner or later, but precisely on time. So instead of fearing it, work with it. Observe your emotions, refine your thoughts, purify your words, for each one is a seed planted in your energetic field. Fire only burns the seeds that do not belong, so that you can sow truth again in the soil of your being. Do not expect the law to change for you. Let yourself change with the law. When you live honestly, the fire becomes gentle, for there is nothing left to burn. It becomes warmth instead. You walk lighter, calmer, knowing everything is unfolding exactly as it should. No need to control. No need to fear mistakes. The law already holds everything in balance. And then you realize the fire is no longer outside. It is within you, as the clear awareness that you live in a perfect order where nothing is random. From that place, you stop running and begin to thank the fire, because through it, you are returned to the purity the universal law has always kept for you. Asterisk, asterisk. If you are walking through fire today, leave a comment saying, "I'm ready to change." So the universe knows you have understood the message of the law, that you no longer need to run, only to tune your strings and play the true note of your soul. Asterisk, asterisk. Dismantling the romanticism of pain. From information to wisdom, pain is not sacred. It is only a signal. Only when you face it with awareness does that signal become wisdom. If you worship it, you remain trapped in the cycle of suffering. Pain does not need to be glorified. It needs to be understood. Human beings tend to assign divine meaning to suffering in order to justify it. But the universe does not demand that you endure to be redeemed. Pain is simply the natural reaction when energy is blocked, when the flow of life is obstructed by false beliefs, suppressed emotions, or denied truths. When you hear the message within it, the pain ends. Fire does not come to reward those who endure well. It comes to awaken you. Each time you endure without awareness, the fire must burn stronger. When you recognize the lesson, the flame extinguishes itself. There is no ritual more sacred than the act of realization. Pain is data. Emotion is a diagnostic tool. They show you where in your inner world energy is stuck. Anger points to where you have lost your boundaries. Anxiety reveals your attempt to control the uncontrollable. Envy signals neglected potential. Every pain is a piece of information. When you decode it, you decode yourself. Most people are never taught how to read these signals. We are taught to run through work, entertainment, or beliefs that decorate our wounds. But when you avoid, the signal must repeat louder. That is why the same challenges keep returning. It is not destiny punishing you, but life replaying the lesson until you listen. Emmet Fox called this time's mental equivalency asterisk. What you hold in mind multiplies in experience. If you nurture fear, life will construct situations that force you to face that fear. When you look at it directly, the pattern ends. No need for long prayers, only honesty. Do not romanticize pain. There is no nobility in enduring what is no longer true. Pain does not measure your spiritual depth. It measures your resistance to truth. The more you cling to the image of the strong sufferer, the further you drift from the light. Wisdom begins when you stop seeking meaning and start observing the mechanism. Why does it hurt here? What is being touched? What part of me still believes I must suffer to prove my worth? The answers are not words, but sensations. When you allow yourself to feel fully, the pain dissolves and energy returns to balance. The difference between the awakened and the asleep lies only in how they use pain. The unawakened are led by it. The awakened use it as a mirror. When pain appears, they do not ask why, they ask for what. They do not attach to the emotion, they extract its data. Each time they do, the soul expands another degree. Pain is not proof that you did something wrong. It is evidence that you are shifting layers. Every new doorway opens through friction. Let the friction do its work. Do not overanalyze the past or force yourself to move on. Just look and breathe. Every wound, when seen with awareness, becomes a crack of light. When you accept, the fire within pain transforms from destroyer to illuminator. You begin to see the line between real pain and the story about pain. The first is experience. The second is habit. When the story falls away, only pure sensation remains. And within that purity, you realize you were never broken. You were only cleansing what was false. From that moment on, you no longer need fierce fire. A single spark is enough to light the way. When perception becomes clear, pain is reduced to information, not punishment. Every experience becomes an exact lesson, refining your wisdom. Do not worship suffering. Learn from it, thank it, then walk on. When the lesson is complete, fire turns to light, and you begin to live at the frequency of one who knows. The fire and resistance, the more you fight, the more it burns. All prolonged suffering has one root: resistance. It is not the fire that exhausts you, but the useless effort to avoid it. When you resist, the fire flares stronger. When you stop resisting, it begins to calm. This law has no exceptions. Resistance does not always appear obvious. It can wear a reasonable mask, saying, I just want things to go back to how they were. But in truth, that is the voice of fear, fear of losing control, fear of having no safety net. Deep down, you try to preserve the old order, even when that very order has become your prison. And when the soul wants liberation, the universe must ignite the fire so that you can no longer hide. Resistance makes every process more painful. It is the act of rowing against a river's current. You cannot defeat water. You can only move with its flow. The tighter you hold, the more you are dragged under. When you open, the water carries you. Fire works the same way. The more you fear, the hotter it feels. The more you allow, the more it becomes light. Each time you reject an experience, you plant a new seed of suffering. When you say, this should not be happening, you build a wall against the universal law, and the law must apply greater pressure to break it. That is why a small lesson, when avoided, returns in a larger form until you stop resisting. Resistance is not only in actions, it lives in energy. You may sit still, yet be rigid inside. The mind contracts, the breath shortens, the will tightens. That is the state of trapped fire. Unable to move, it turns inward, burning your nerves, draining your strength, disturbing your sleep. But when you release, fire finds its way out. It passes through, leaving behind clean ash and new ground. Emmet Fox wrote, no condition is ever healed through compulsion. All healing begins with acceptance. Acceptance is not surrender. It is seeing what is here without judgment. From that point of view, energy begins to shift. When you stop saying this should not be, the universe finally has room to say, then let it change. Resistance is the ego's last illusion. It believes it can control fire, that with enough effort it can manage transformation. But the truth is, you cannot control the fire because you are the fire. What resists is not your true self, but your shadow, the part that craves control, safety, certainty. Fire comes to show that this part was never your power. You can observe this in your breath. When you inhale deeply and exhale fully, energy flows. When you hold tension, your breath shortens, your chest tightens, and the fire begins to build. The body mirrors the mind. If the body is tense, the mind is resisting. The only way to break the cycle is to soften, not by force, but by allowing. There are three subtle forms of resistance. Asterisk, asterisk, intellectualizing, asterisk, asterisk, trying to explain instead of feeling. Asterisk, asterisk, spiritualizing. Asterisk, asterisk, using lofty language to avoid real pain. Asterisk, asterisk, controlling, asterisk, asterisk, wanting the fire to follow your schedule. All three lead to the same result. You still have not learned the lesson of letting go. Letting go is not giving up. It is acknowledging that the process is wiser than you. When you stop fighting, the law begins to move gently. When you stop trying to fix, the wound begins to heal. When you accept not knowing, wisdom appears. The more you resist, the closer you are pushed to the fire. The more you open, the softer the fire feels. Emotion melts. Awareness expands. From there, you realize adversity never aimed to hurt you. It only waited for you to stop struggling so it could guide you through. Remember, fire never chases you. It stands still, patient, radiant. It is you in panic who runs in circles around it, burning yourself in the smoke. When you stop and look directly into its center, you find something strange. At the core of the flame, there is no pain, only pure light. Resistance keeps you outside that circle. Surrender brings you into the center. One small shift, yet it changes the entire journey. From I am being burned to I am being refined. When you change the language, you change the experience. When you change the experience, you change your life. The fire is simply doing its work, removing what is false. You cannot bargain with it. You can only cooperate. And when you begin to cooperate, everything falls into place with mysterious precision. What needs to leave will leave. What needs to stay will stand firm. No striving, no forcing, asterisk, asterisk. So what will you choose today? To keep resisting and let the fire burn you, or to open and let it shine? Leave a simple word, a single yes, to hear your own presence within the fire that is refining you. Asterisk, asterisk, removing the armor, falling with honor, opening with grace. At a certain point, you realize there is no need to keep holding yourself together. Every layer of armor you have worn to appear strong, calm, or wise is only fear disguised as pride. The fire does not care if you look steady. It only cares whether what is real has been revealed. And when the fire wants to touch your core, no armor is thick enough to hide it. Letting go of the armor is not giving up. It is the most courageous act, the willingness to show up unprotected. When you no longer need to prove you are fine, you finally begin to be fine. Defense is the reflex of the ego. Surrender is the instinct of the soul. One clings to image, the other chooses truth. Fire can only work with truth. Look at how long you have been fighting. You fight emotion with logic, fear with overaction, loneliness with attachment. Yet each time you win, you lose a bit more freedom. The fire does not want you to win or lose. It only wants you to stop the war. When you stop fighting yourself, the fire becomes gentle. Opening with grace is the state of allowing yourself to fall without shame. A pillow late at night, an honest sigh, a tear that finally escapes. These are not signs of weakness. They are marks of maturity. Only those who are strong enough dare to dissolve. There is dignity in collapse when you do not use it to seek pity, but to return to honesty. I am tired. I do not know. I need to stop. These are not failures. They are prayers of the soul wanting to return to its natural rhythm. When you say them, something heavy drops away. No witness is needed, only your own acknowledgement. Emmet Fox once wrote, "When you stop defending yourself, the universe begins to defend you. You can only understand that once you have fallen. In the fall, you see that true strength does not come from rigidity, but from flexibility. Dry wood snaps in a storm, but the living tree bends and survives. The soul is the same. When you stop resisting, you do not weaken. You merge with the flow. Opening with grace is not a dramatic explosion. It is a quiet process where false layers slip off softly like falling ash. You do not need to overcome anything. You only need to stop building walls. Walls do not stop the fire. They only trap the smoke. When the walls fall, the wind enters, the fire passes through, and new air fills the space. Many fear letting go because they think without protection they will be hurt. But pain does not come from outside. It comes from inner resistance. When you open, everything moves through lightly. When you close, everything gets stuck. Letting go of armor is allowing all things to flow, including emotions, including tears, including the parts of you that are changing shape. The ego despises opening because it lives through form, but the soul loves it because only in dissolution can creation begin. A clenched hand cannot receive. A closed heart cannot feel grace. When you let go, you become empty, and in that emptiness lies infinite potential. There will be days when you sit among ashes, with no plan, no strength left. Let it be. Do not rush to rebuild. Do not try to paint over the cracks. That is a sacred time, the moment when the soil softens so a seed can be planted. If you allow it, life will know how to grow again. The fire does not need your bravado. It only needs your presence. When you can say, I do not know, but I'm willing to listen, the universe immediately responds. A small event, a person, a dream, each becomes a channel of wisdom, but only when you are empty enough to receive. Opening with grace is accepting that you do not have to be strong forever. Maybe today you collapse. That is all right. The soul still stands. It never breaks. It only hides beneath the ashes. When you remove your armor, you do not lose yourself. You allow the soul to breathe for you. And then you understand, true strength is not in never falling, but in rising again without hardening. Fire does not demand victory. It demands honesty. When you are honest, it retreats. When you pretend to be strong, it burns brighter. Let everything fall the right way, lightly, honorably, gracefully. No blaming, no self-pity. Simply acknowledge that the old chapter has ended. When you can say, it is over, and feel peace inside, that is the moment a new life begins. The gold that remains after fire, less crowded, more whole. When the fire has passed, the first thing that disappears is the noise. No one left to blame, nothing left to prove. What remains is the hardest, purest part, the part that cannot burn. That is the gold. Not the gold of matter, but the pure essence of the soul, revealed only after everything false has turned to ash. This gold is not loud nor glittering. It is a deep silence. One who has walked through fire does not need to announce their strength. Their presence alone speaks it. No affirmations, no slogans, just breath, steady and grounded, proof enough of resilience. When you step out from the ruins, you notice something. The world feels less crowded, not because people have left, but because their voices no longer fill your mind. Opinions, expectations, roles, all once 1,000 voices speaking at once. Now, they are quiet, and in that space, you begin to hear yourself. Fire takes much, but it gives back one priceless gift. Asterisk, asterisk, the ability to discern what is real from what is not. Asterisk, asterisk. You see which relationships are born of resonance and which are habit. Which beliefs come from the soul and which from fear dressed as virtue. Once seen, it cannot be unseen. And the old world, however familiar, can no longer hold you. Emmet Fox once said, no one truly loses what belongs to them. Fire only removes what no longer serves growth. It does not destroy, it refines. When the ashes fall, you see clearly what is gold. There may not be much of it, but it is enough to rebuild a life simple, pure, without excess. You speak less, compare less, argue less. Everything you keep must carry real weight. You stop seeking meaningless encounters. You stop going where noise fills the air. Not from arrogance, but because the mind now knows the weight of silence. In that silence, you feel closer to God, closer to yourself. As things simplify, you realize strength does not come from adding, but from subtracting. To have less is to hold essence. The more you release, the more concentrated your energy becomes. You do not need to chase new things. You only need to stay centered. The less scattered your light, the further it shines. Fire teaches that growth is not accumulation, but distillation. To be less crowded is the condition for wholeness. In that concentration, you touch the deepest layer of peace. where there is nothing to lose because there is nothing extra. You begin to understand what enough truly means, not enough possessions, but enough awareness. Among the ashes, you notice small pieces, still shining honesty, kindness, faith in goodness. That is the true gold. It is not radiant, but it does not fade. Fire may erase memories, but it cannot burn away virtue. When you realize this, you stop fearing loss. You understand that what is real always returns, sometimes in a new form, but never changed in essence. From that moment, you live differently. You no longer try to appear peaceful. You are peace. You do not try to be good. You simply act with kindness. You do not try to hold on to anyone. You let them choose to stay, because you know that what belongs to you will remain without being bound. Everything else, however beautiful, is just a season that has passed. The gold that remains after fire needs no polishing. It already has its perfect form. Your task is not to improve it, but to preserve its clarity. That is not work, but a way of being calm, steady, quiet, deeply present. When faced with challenge, you no longer ask why, but what part of me is this refining? When you live this way, those around you feel a different energy. They come to you, not because you promise anything, but because truth lives in your presence. The fire has made you so clear that by simply being, you invite others to see themselves. That is the silent power of gold. It does not prove. It simply is. If someone asks you, after everything, what remains, you can answer simply, I remain. Nothing added, nothing missing, no mask, no role. A person clean, calm, and clear, that is gold. Asterisk, asterisk. If you have walked through the fire and found what is real within, leave a comment saying, I am ready to change. Because truth grows when it is acknowledged, and every word you write is a sign that the fire has completed its sacred work. Asterisk, asterisk. The new I, living from sovereign interpretation. When the ashes have settled, the first thing you notice is not that the world has changed, but that your gaze has. The old I saw chaos. The new I sees the hidden order within it. Once, you lived as someone swept away by the river, clinging to everything so as not to drown. Now, you are the river. You no longer need to grasp. You flow by your own law. From here, nothing seems random anymore. You begin to read the inner structure of events. Every person carries a message. Every disturbance has its own grammar. And the most remarkable realization is this: the meaning of everything depends on asterisk, asterisk, your interpretation. Asterisk, asterisk. The world has not changed. Your way of seeing has. Emmet Fox once said, no one can hurt you unless you allow it through your interpretation. That is the pinnacle of spiritual freedom. You cannot control the weather, other people's actions, or the flow of life, but you can control how you understand them. The moment you claim that right, you become the author of your own script. Before, when things went wrong, you instantly labeled them bad, lost, failed. Now the new I no longer rushes to label. It observes. It recognizes that every situation has two layers, surface and essence. The surface may seem chaotic, but the essence is always precise. When you look only at the surface, you see randomness. When you look through the new eye, you see perfect order at work. The difference between the awakened and the asleep is not in how much pain they experience, but in how they read events. The asleep ask, why is this happening to me? The awakened ask, what is this trying to awaken in me? The questions differ, and so do the outcomes. The first creates resentment, the second opens wisdom. The new eye does not seek blame, it seeks patterns. It sees that everything you encounter is an extension of yourself. Conflict with others mirrors inner division. The love you receive is the reflection of the love you have given. The world is not against you, it is resonating with you. Once you see that, you stop manipulating and start tuning your inner frequency. The outer world adjusts itself accordingly. Interpretation is the mind's greatest creative tool. Two people can live the same event. One collapses, the other awakens. The event is the same, the interpretation is different. When you understand that meaning does not exist inside the event but is born from consciousness, you reclaim your creative power. To live from sovereign interpretation means not letting anyone decide your emotions for you. A harsh word can be a dagger or a mirror. It depends on how you see it. A failure can be an ending or a beginning. It depends on what you call it. When the right to name returns to you, life no longer drags you. It begins to respond to you. True freedom is not doing anything you want, but understanding everything in a way that helps you evolve. You do not avoid experience. You use it as data to grow. Instead of reacting, you reflect. Instead of repeating old stories, you write new ones. Each day, you choose a new way to read life, and with each choice, a new version of you is born. The new I does not look through fear, but through fairness. It neither glorifies nor condemns. It simply sees clearly. It sees pain not as enemy, the one who hurt you as teacher, failure as the soul's practice ground. When you see this way, you no longer need to forgive anyone, you simply understand. And understanding is forgiveness. You begin to see the absolute power of meaning. Meaning is the frame, the event is the painting. Change the frame, and the picture changes. When you choose to frame a situation with wisdom, everything within it becomes light. When you frame it with resentment, the light turns to shadow. The world does not choose the frame for you. That is the work of the new I. Living from sovereign interpretation is not controlling through will, but creating through awareness. You do not force yourself to think positive. You simply choose to see truthfully. When you see clearly, peace arises naturally. Peace is not a reward. It is the byproduct of right perception. From this point, you no longer need good circumstances to feel good. You choose to feel good so that circumstances improve. You live in reverse of old habit, not from outside in, but from inside out. Every action, word, and decision now flows from inner alignment. When that alignment is firm, everything else falls into place. Those who have not opened this eye still seek validation. Those who have know they need none. The light of understanding is its own proof. And when you begin to live this way, all outer turbulence becomes small motion within the vast design of divine order. No longer afraid of being wrong, of losing, of being misunderstood, because you understand yourself. And once you understand yourself, nothing can break you. Integration, fire as a faithful companion. Once you have seen the truth behind every event, you no longer wish to escape the fire. You begin to see that it is no longer a threat. The fire is still there, but now it stands beside you, not against you. It is no longer a test, but the steady presence of life itself. When fear fades, the fire becomes a quiet friend. Those who do not understand still long for an ending. Those who see clearly know there is no end. Each day is a small cycle of refinement. You wake and step into new fires, an unkind word, an imperfect task, a brief wave of anger, and you watch without reacting. These are simply the daily practices of consciousness expanding. Integration is the shift from times healing, times to times living. Asterisk once, you sought peace. Now you live in peace amid movement. The fire no longer needs to burn, it only warms. You no longer chase extremes of stillness or motion. You become the center where both meet. Emmet Fox once wrote, "A soul that is illumined does not withdraw from the world, it illuminates it." That is integration. When you understand the fire, you no longer need to leave the world to stay calm. You bring calm into the world. You work, you love, you fail, you begin again, but within you burns not the wildfire of struggle, but the ordered flame of presence. Every action now arises from stillness. You speak less, listen more, observe deeply, and respond slowly. To others, it may look like you have changed. In truth, you have simply stopped wasting energy on what is not real. You place your energy with intention. You choose carefully who and what stays close. The fire teaches you how to preserve your light. You also begin to understand that not everyone moves at the same rhythm. Some are still running from their fires. You do not judge because you have been there. You simply hold your light steady so that when they are ready, they will know the way back. Integration does not ask you to save anyone. It invites you to be living proof that fire is not the enemy. When the fire is near, you no longer need spiritual highs. Truth is not found in ecstasy, but in the steady rhythm of life. You wash dishes, drive, answer emails, and still feel the quiet flame glowing in your chest. Every small act becomes a ritual. Every breath, a prayer. Your fire no longer needs to perform. It does not flare, roar, or demand witness. It is the steady oil lamp of awareness, lighting your path in silence. At times you may think you have lost your inspiration, but that is not loss, it is stability. Old inspiration came from movement. True light comes from stillness. Now you live in a natural rhythm of balance: burn, shine, rest, burn again. No extremes, no resistance, no clinging to the light. You understand that even peace has its breath: arrival, presence, departure. Wisdom is knowing not to hold any phase too tightly. Integration is also the end of dividing life into times, hard times, and times, easy times. Asterisk. Every moment contains a chance to grow brighter. In difficulty, you ask, what within you needs refinement? In ease, you stay watchful, not complacent. Both are different temperatures of the same fire. The idea of times before times and times after times, the fire disappears. You no longer tell the story, I was broken, now I am healed. You know it has always been one process. Fire no longer needs a name. It is simply life moving through you. When you breathe, it glows. When you sleep, it rests. Its presence becomes as natural as heartbeat and blood flow. You realize something profound. There is no permanent safe zone, and that is no longer bad news. Because you no longer need safety, you need truth, and truth is always moving. When you can move with it without losing your center, you have integrated the fire. From here, every decision comes from clarity, not from fear, not from proving. If something no longer fits, you release it. If something feels right, you act without hesitation. This clarity needs no reasoning. It arrives quietly, like current through wire, and you move. Fire becomes your compass. You feel it whenever you drift from center, a faint heat in the chest, a sudden quickening of heartbeat. Instead of panicking, you pause and breathe. You adjust. The fire signals. You listen. This cooperation gives birth to a new kind of intelligence, one that senses rather than analyzes. Integration is the state of one who no longer seeks light, because they have become it. They do not try to prove understanding. Their stillness is proof enough. When others ask, how can I be at peace? They simply smile. There is no formula, only the slow art of living long enough with fire to realize it was never against you. The fire remains, but it no longer burns. It stays beside you like a faithful friend, a quiet teacher, a lamp keeping watch through the night. You no longer ask, when will it end? You simply whisper, thank you for staying. And in that whisper, the fire smiles, returning to the inner voice, living in alignment. Amid the endless noise of the world, there is always one sound that has never gone silent, the voice within you. It does not shout, argue, or reason. It simply speaks truth quietly. When you are running, you cannot hear it. When you stop, it begins to speak. Once you sought guidance outside yourself. You asked for opinions, read books, prayed for signs. But the more you searched, the more lost you became. Because the world's noise cannot guide a soul as unique as yours, there is only one frequency that knows your path perfectly, the inner voice. It has always been there, only covered by fear and doubt. This voice does not belong to the mind. It does not come from memory or logic. It rises from the deep place where consciousness touches truth. Emmet Fox called it the inner voice of Christ, the purest part of you untouched by time. When you hear it, you do not need to predict the future. You simply know the next step is right. People often mistake intuition for emotion. It is not. Emotion is the wave. Intuition is the ocean. Emotion shifts with circumstances. Intuition rests beneath them. When your mind is noisy, you hear the waves. When it is still, you hear the ocean. And the ocean never lies. The inner voice never says must. It says right. Must is pressure. Right is peace. When you do what is right, your body feels light, breath steady, heart calm. When you act against it, even with good logic, your body warns you tight chest, fatigue, unease. That is how the soul speaks, through sensation. You do not need advice, only the stillness to listen. At first you will doubt, how can I tell this voice from the ego's echo? The answer is simple. The voice of the soul is always calm. It does not rush, seduce, or threaten. It speaks softly, so softly you must be silent to hear. The ego's voice is the opposite, loud, urgent, full of stories. When you begin to listen, you will find this voice brutally honest. It does not flatter or comfort. It says stop, leave, forgive, tell the truth, and though its words may scare you, you know they are right. Each time you follow, the energy of that rightness expands, clear and steady. It is not power through control, but power through alignment. Hearing the inner voice is one thing, living by it is another. Living in alignment means acting without fear, without emotional debt, without habit. Each step matches your center. You need no elaborate plan, only moment-to-moment honesty. Truth will guide you further than any map. A person who lives in alignment does not seek permission. They do not argue, prove, or persuade. They simply act from inner coherence, and life reflects that coherence back to them. When you live this way, life stops being a maze and becomes a flow. Now you find yourself speaking less and listening more. You no longer search for verbal answers. You feel them. Each choice becomes a form of meditation. What to eat, what to say, where to go, each is illuminated from within. When uncertain, you pause. When it feels right, you move. No hesitation, no need for approval, no waiting for agreement. This voice does not only guide you in great decisions, it is present in the smallest details. When you are about to speak unnecessarily, it whispers, be quiet. When you want to delay, it says, now. When you are about to compromise, it reminds, don't. Hearing these whispers is a sign you have come home. Emmet Fox wrote, when the mind aligns with the inner voice, no outer obstacle can stand in its way. Alignment is not an emotion, it is a structure of energy. Each time you choose honesty over fear, you strengthen that structure. Do it often enough, and it becomes your nature. Living in alignment is living in luminous stillness. You do not extinguish the fire. You learn to keep it burning evenly. Every word and action is tempered in that flame before leaving you, and so they are clear and true. You no longer create chaos. You create order. The inner voice is an old friend, one that never left, only waited for you to listen. When you truly listen, the world changes its tone. What is right comes easily. What is wrong falls away. No effort needed, only the listening. Asterisk, asterisk. So tell me, how long has it been since you were truly silent enough to hear your own voice? The next time your heart whispers, will you pause to listen, or let the world's noise drown it out? Thank you for still being here, for daring to listen, and for not turning away. Asterisk, asterisk. Living with fire. Continual refinement in daily life. After the great fires have passed, you might think their work is done. But no, fire never truly leaves. It only changes form, from storm to warmth, from thunder to a quiet ember. Now, you no longer survive the fire, you live with it. This is the final stage of refinement, where fire is no longer a challenge, but a rhythm of life. Living with fire does not mean living in suffering. It means you can recognize the small flames of each day, the minor frictions, misunderstandings, moments of weakness. You no longer let them break you. You observe. You breathe. You let the fire do its work, burning away the last traces of illusion within the self. Once you reacted to everything. Now you reflect. When someone loses their temper, you do not mirror it. When life pushes you off center, you self-correct. Every situation becomes a small practice. Fire is there in a glance, a word, a choice between patience and impulse. And you realize that maturity does not come from great battles, but from countless moments where you keep your balance. Emmet Fox once wrote, There is no place devoid of spirit, only places where you forget you are the light. Living with fire is remembering that no matter where you are in work, in crowds, or in solitude, the flame remains within, steady, guiding each decision. You no longer need a retreat or to escape the world. Every act becomes meditation. Every breath becomes prayer. In this new way of living, you work differently. You no longer choose for quick gain, but for what feels right. You no longer seek to please, but to be true. You no longer delay, knowing that each moment the fire within waits to move through you. Discipline no longer comes from pressure, but from love for clarity. Living with fire also means embracing the cycles. Some days you are clear, some days clouded, sometimes strong, sometimes trembling. But instead of fearing it, you see it as natural. You understand that light does not vanish, it only shifts in intensity. When you stop judging yourself by every fluctuation, your fire steadies, not flaring, not fading. You also learn how to walk through the world without losing yourself. You do not need to prove or preach. Your calmness becomes your message. When others storm, you are the still water. When they wander, you are the quiet lamp. Not because you are greater, but because you have been tempered. Your fire has matured enough to warm without burning. To live with fire is to live with natural discipline, doing the right thing at the right time in the right measure. No forcing, no exaggerating. When the body needs rest, you rest. When the soul needs silence, you are silent. When the call comes, you act. Nothing extra, nothing missing. This balance is the sign that you have truly integrated the flame. Fire also teaches humility. Every time you think you are finished, life sends a small spark to remind you there is still a little smoke left. But now you do not fear it. You look at that spark with gratitude. Each refinement makes you clearer. No one is exempt from the forge. The awakened simply smile while they are being shaped. The world remains loud. People keep changing. Challenges still arrive. Yet inside you there is a place unmoved. From there, you watch everything pass not coldly but clearly. You love life more because you see it for what it is, a dance between light and shadow. Both serve expansion. And when you understand that, you stop dividing things into good or bad. You see only what is necessary and what is not yet. Living with fire means no longer fearing pain, no longer doubting, no longer praying out of fear. You begin to pray as gratitude. Not save me from this, but thank you for the fire that still teaches me. Each thank you softens the flame, making it steady and kind. In this state, you stop chasing peace because you are peace. Your peace does not depend on quiet surroundings, but on your ability to stay centered amid chaos. You realize that perfection is unnecessary, only alignment matters. When the heart is straight, the fire is straight. Life becomes simple again. You feel gratitude for the small things, the glass of water, the wind, a friend, the morning light. What once seemed ordinary becomes sacred, because you now see with the eyes of one who has walked through fire. Every detail is evidence of grace. To live with fire is to stop asking, when will this end? And start asking, how will I live with it today? The answer changes daily, but the feeling stays the same, warm, steady, real. You know you have reached the deepest part of the journey, where life is simply the practice of light. And when night falls, you sit quietly, watching a small candle burn. You understand it is not just physical light, it is the reflection of your own consciousness. No storm, no smoke, only clarity. You smile. There is no ending, only the fire, and you breathing together in quiet rhythm. Union. I have burned, and now I carry the fire. There is no boundary between me and the flame. We are one. I no longer say I have overcome, for there was nothing to overcome, only a merging, where the one who once feared has become the very energy that once taught. I no longer see the fire as an enemy, nor worship it as divine. I live with it, breathe with it, and understand that every movement is a prayer. I once ran, I once wept, I once begged life to stop burning me, but now I know if I had not burned, I would have remained damp wood, heavy, silent, and useless. It was the fire that turned me into light. It took nothing from me. It only returned what had been hidden. The more I burned, the lighter I became, and when the ashes fell, I saw my true face still, radiant, fearless. Emmet Fox once said, "No one is truly saved until they realize that God is within." Now I understand. God is not above, not in words, not in temples. He is the fire I carry, the flame that knows how to separate truth from illusion, how to burn away fear and illuminate love. I no longer seek proof. I no longer wait for signs. Every step, every breath, every calm glance is confirmation that I have become the very process I once resisted. I no longer pray for peace. I am peace. I no longer seek light. I am light. Now I carry the fire in every word, in every silence, in every way I listen. I do not teach. I am simply present. Whoever comes near this energy will remember their own flame, for no one truly needs saving. They only need to be shown. And when they are shown enough, they too will say what I say today. Asterisk, asterisk, I have burned, and now I carry the fire. Asterisk, asterisk,